Welcome to the Microsoft Cloud Option webinar series. My name is Vivek Bhatnagar. I am a CTO and founder for UnifyCloud. Microsoft is always strong for developers. They have known for best development tools. They always have tools. Even if they don't support that particular part, they still have the best tools to write. They have acquired GitHub. I think that's one of the best company Microsoft acquired. And this give them a huge amount of developers who are using GitHub for their repository. And in this COVID-19 era, they are making majority of GitHub functionality as a free for a small team of developers. So GitHub, Visual Studio Source Code, and these are the services available which actually run today on Azure and use Azure and then create. They also have a very good collection of citizen developers. The vision which Microsoft is having today that everybody can code. So not only the professional developers, but there are citizen developers who can actually don't need to write a code, but they can write code as a configuration and develop it. So these are tools like Power Platform tools, which Microsoft has launched a couple of years back, very popular today for their citizen developers. One more detail about at least Microsoft Power Platform. Again, it is very popular, and it is mainly three components: Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and then agent part of the same thing. And these are like for those people who actually not a developers, but they can still code by selecting the right things. It's very easy to use based on AI and that aspect. My guess is that we are going to go see a huge demand for citizen developers and how people can do coding and uh, basically help in developing a few of these things. Let's look at some of the application patterns using the same technology, because it's very hard to talk about each one of these services in a short amount of time. So let's look at what are the different patterns of application for modernization and migration. We actually look at, you can see the managed container platform. So these are the patterns based on containers. They use managed databases, they use artificial intelligence, they actually have a like low code application platform. So these are the ingredients, you can mix and match to create multiple architectures and patterns. So let's look at some of the patterns. So the first pattern we talked about, containerized application development, and it's again the most popular pattern people use. It use the technologies like Azure container, like a Kubernetes services, then GitHub repositories, and how customer can use these two in full integration and deploy their code and finally monitor that code using Azure Monitor. And the next pattern, based on detailed Kubernetes services, where you actually run a Kubernetes cluster or service connected to a very scalable Cosmos DB, and then basically running a machine learning services. Azure Databricks service is available to prepare your data. It helps you prepare your data, and then you can use machine learning to actually train your models. So this is again an application pattern. There are one more pattern for Kubernetes services where it is part of the run as a microservices. You can see that they're microservices based architecture. Again, this can be used for driving a lot of innovations and other thing. Those people don't know much about microservices. Microservices are software architecture style which applications are composed of a small independent module that communicate with each other using very well defined API contracts. It's very popular. It's popular from our service oriented days. These service modules are highly decoupled building block that are small enough to implement a single functionality. So you break down to your big application to single functionality microservices, and then you can scale them independently. The purpose of microservice architecture is to make it easier to develop and scale applications, and it also fosters a lot of collaborations between different teams and autonomous team, and enable them to build new functionality for a market very fast, because they develop these as part of the independent services, and then they can use them at the higher level. So that's why microservices are getting very popular. Microsoft Azure Fabric is also a very important platform to build these microservices. This is where like cloud native microservices example where like microservices are serving multiple channels connecting to backend Azure services. Um, I have included all these slides as part of this deck so that you can look at these and maybe use them for some of innovative aspect of these things. The information about this architecture is also available free of cost on GitHub, and you can actually look at those GitHub things. This is again a very simple architecture for serverless, and serverless typically used for event processing, where it can connect it to the event hub, processes like millions of events, and write synchronously to Cosmos DB, and then serve a particular business function. You can use Azure pipelines and other things just to make sure that for deployment of these kinds of applications. There's one more architecture for serverless web applications. Here, single web application, which is actually serving content and also having an API based, and the API based things are connected to a app, function app, and then Cosmos DB. Again, very scalable application. We have used this architecture to scale an application worldwide with serving millions of records a second. So these things are like our applications written here. So you can see that I just want to bring back my tool slide, which I have shown you before an hour before, just to give you more idea that these how the distinct teams slide going to work. So these are the tools. You can see that again, the same tools which we have discussed can be used for innovation. So these tools are common for migration and innovation phase 4. One thing I highly encourage to look at the third-party tools. So you can see that these are some third-party tools which actually serve one purpose or other purpose tools. For example, Cloud Atlas is nothing but a tool from UnifyCloud, so which is built by us. So definitely a tool to look for. Majority of these tools have some partnership with Microsoft. So in case you can always use them uh, for different things. Then we have let me just little bit go deep like on one of the important tool, Azure Migrate Hub. This tool represent new thinking from Microsoft. So Microsoft is thinking to bring all their migration assets in a connected way or in an integrated way into one tool, which is Azure Migrate Hub. And they are also allowing ISVs like UnifyCloud from us to connect our tool back to also Migration Hub. So this has become Azure Migration Hub for customers. So if they want to use Microsoft tools, they can use the Microsoft tools. If they want to use an ISV tool, they can use it. And the data can move seamlessly from it. For example, if you start using Microsoft tool, you can very seamlessly push that data to an ISV tool, like for example, a UnifyCloud. And if you're using UnifyCloud and at particular point of time you decide, okay, I'm going to move to the Microsoft tools, then you can take the data and go to the Microsoft tools. So it's very innovative approach. I really like Microsoft approach, the way they are building this migration hubs and other thing. And you can see that they are extending to a lot of other ISVs for these tools. Now, this is just to give you one more capability in Azure Migrate. Azure Migrate, it is part of the Azure Migrate Hub, and it can migrate like a lot of application and database, easy migration, easy systems and other thing. But it needs a lot of background work. So I just cautious you to look at the tool and make sure that you do that background work to make sure that you get the required results. So this is just to give you a very quick insight that how do you do a simple VM migration, and the point which we are trying to make here that Azure Migrate can migrate like 100 or thousands of VM together. It is now a new architecture which is like you don't need to set up agents and all on all VMs. You can actually use an Azure Migrate appliance. You can install it into a VMware or Hyper-V environment, and that appliance help you to maybe start a discovery again, and then you can actually help you to migrate all your workloads and do that application and cut off. So very seamless process. It works very like very nicely. it is supporting like Linux VMs or Windows VMs and other thing, and save a lot of cost. This tool work really nicely for any of the migration to Microsoft Azure. Similarly, you can migrate databases, the same approach that you can take. So you can take all these databases, SQL, MySQL, and other things, and use Azure Migrate tools to migrate to the Azure. There are third-party tools available in case you are trying to migrate Oracle and all. Very easy to migrate. There is one slide I have included which actually give you some sort of a tabular form that which tool to use to migrate which of the database, and so this is very useful tool. But I will because Microsoft is keep adding new functionalities, so I always encourage you to go to the link to get the latest snapshot of this guide so that you can take a decision. So this is the data migration guide available publicly from Microsoft and give you the what tools are useful to migrate which of databases. So very useful guide. And similarly, Microsoft has some uh, guidance on how do you migrate an app like an application. So you, and although like it's a too simple guidance, and I sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't, because they are not covering all the scenarios. But it is a simpler, like if you're an existing application, and you can actually when you should go migrate, and then or when you should actually try to modernize and use more and more cloud services. But it is more a subjective guidance. It's not like as database guidance. So I take it with your own risk.